I would like to welcome Iona Pop for a sociology introduction of microdosing to the stage with a grand applause.
Good evening everyone. Thank you so much for your introduction. You already spoiled a bit of the things that I wanted to share with you, but I'm going to do it nevertheless, and I hope you're going to enjoy this presentation. I'm going to, of course, talk about microdosing, and I have the following plan. First of all, I'm going to define and also place this practice in a more general historic and social context. Then I'm going to focus a bit more into the way this practice is framed and how it is integrated in the lives of those that are engaging in this practice. And last I'm going to talk a bit about results from my research, indeed linking microdosing with authenticity. Okay, so now about this brief personal story, how I got actually to be interested in this topic. It was 2019, I was teaching, and one of the students caught my eyes. He was very bright, very curious, always asking questions. And during the last presentation for the course, it was a group presentation, he definitely got my interest, because he seemed to be very, very scattered. Talking and about things that they were kind of like, you know, in line with what he was supposed to say, but not really. In the end, he went way over time. His group members were like very, very frustrated with him. And so I talked to him afterwards and I asked him what was happening. And he very candidly admitted that he was microdosing and he took a dose that day, but the dose was a bit too high. So basically he was mildly tripping during the exam. And so I was shocked by that, because in 2019 I had no idea what psychedelics were, and in my idea they were like, these are drugs. And so the idea that a student, and especially a student at our university, would engage in this practice, it was like really shocking to me. So I went, like every person, you know, having a curiosity, I went online, and a whole world opened up to me, like from Silicon Valley creative to soccer moms and everything in between. A lot of people were like very, very interested in this practice. And so for those of you in the audience that maybe do not know really what microdosing is, here is like the working definition that we use most of the time in the research. Is the practice of using sub-threshold doses of psychedelic drugs. And psychedelic drugs we refer here at substances like LSD or psilocybin that are contained by magic mushrooms or truffles, DMT that is found in ayahuasca, you have then mescaline in different kind of cacti, but also for instance ibogaine in iboga. And this idea of sub-thresholds, so doses that are small, as in not to create effects that would impair daily functioning like it happened by accident with this student. And the idea behind this practice is that people engage in it for two main reasons. First of all, enhancement reason regarding, for instance, increasing cognitive capacity, or for instance boosting energy level, increasing attention, things like that. And on the other hand, we have more clinical kind of reasons. For instance, addressing mental health issues like anxiety, depression, addiction are on the top of motivation to engage in this practice. And so, if we look at the interest in this practice, and here I just use data from Google internet search engine, with presenting the volume over time in searches that goes about microdosing. And as you can see, especially after 2015, we are witnessing quite an interest, in the volume searches. So a lot of people in this world seem to be very, very interested and increasing every year. And in case you're wondering where do these people live, as you can see here is the same kind of source. These people live all over the world. And yes, there are some countries that have shown more interest, and some other countries, depending also on the accessibility of internet, of course, they are not in this graph. But it seems that microdosing is interesting for people all over the world. So, how this came to be, that people all over the world find this practice so interesting? And as Tim was mentioning, the research on psychedelic and also linking those different doses to different kind of outcomes dates back to the 50s and the 60s. But after the 60s, when these substances were put on the list of highly dangerous drugs, researchers did not have access anymore to them, and so everything halted until about the 90s. And nowadays we are witnessing a new psychedelic renaissance, not only in the interest of the general public, but also in the academia. But when we are talking about the general public, I would say that the reason for this practice to become so visible and so interesting and so hot are, on the one hand, the presence of influencers, like for instance James Fadiman, who in 2011 already has published this book, where he argues for the positive effects on health and well-being of microdosing, but also, of course, mass media. And this article, How LSD Microdosing Became the Hot New Business Trip, was published in 2015 and is cited as one of the most influential articles that spurred a lot of interest, of course, because it was published in a very well-known magazine, the Rolling Stones. And from my point of view, the reason why microdosing has become so popular is really to be attributed to the internet and online communities. And here I give just two examples. The Reddit Air Microdosing dedicated community, or for instance the third wave website, that are very accessible in the sense that you don't even need a user in order to access information about different kinds of psychedelics, their effects, ways of dosing, etc., etc. And by this I'm not just giving you, the point is not to give you advice on where to go to find this information, but just to emphasize that these online communities, they function as knowledge hubs, places where people actually can go and find a lot of information readily available about different kinds of modalities of microdosing. And to have an idea about how big or how influential these communities are, the Our Microdosing community was started in October 2013, and by February 2022, more than 188,000 members were active in this community, and with an average of 150 posts per day in 2021. So that's quite a lot of traffic, a lot of information that is happening there. Okay. But leaving this kind of like more general context aside, what I would like now is to go through the characteristics of microdosing that have made this practice interesting for me as a sociologist. First of all, we are talking about mostly illegal substances. So psychedelics are still illegal in most countries, of course with some differences between countries and between substances. But usually we are talking about people that are using mostly illegal substances outside the formal medical settings. At this time there is no place where you can go to the doctor and ask a prescription for microdosing. where there is no consensus on the efficacy of the practice. Yes, we do have quite a lot of research and a lot of projects, but at this moment, as we like to say in the academia, results are inconclusive and we need more research. And the reason for using or for engaging in this practice are either self or formal diagnosed conditions, but also personal enhancement, and also very interesting, and that the guidelines on safe use, so how to, is based on anecdotal accounts of other users or community influencers. So then I had in mind this idea, who are these people, especially based on reports from the media. You can imagine a soccer mom, right? Going someplace to procure, I don't know, LSD or magic mushrooms, right? And going online to look on how she's going to use this, right? So for me it was very interesting, like why would somebody do that? Why don't they just go to the doctor and get some prescription pills or something like that, right? And so when looking at the literature that looks at accounts of people engaging in this practice and how they frame it, we see that microdosing is framed usually as a tool for self-examination and subsequent improvement. And what's interesting when people talk about their practice is that they offer justifications, they don't offer excuses. And this differentiation between justification and excuses comes from the sociology of crime, when it's about people engaging in criminal activities, you know, and talking about it. How do they frame? And an excuse is something, when you give an excuse, you put your responsibility outside, right? It's their fault, or it's my trauma, or it's the context, or they made me do it, basically. That's an excuse. But when people talk about microdosing, they don't offer an excuse, but they offer justifications, and by this, they have this acceptance of responsibility. It was their choice. It was a conscious decision to engage in this practice. So that's very interesting. And the reasons why people engage in microdosing, most of the time they frame it as a need to cope with negative situations or events in their lives. And here the range of negative events, conditions, is really, really very, very wide. Starting from indeed medical conditions like depression, anxiety, but also, for instance, menopause situations, or just increasing cognitive performance, or being a better person and being a better parent, or something like that. So again, here the accent goes also for not only the benefits for the person, but also for the person around them that would also be positively influenced. So all in all, what we see from research is that microdosing as a practice is described and framed as being rational and very conventional. These are perfectly normal, I want to say normal with, mainstream people. I mean, you would expect the neighbor, for instance, to engage in this practice. And this practice is framed as being a behavior that is very responsible. Like, people emphasize a lot how much care they take in making sure that what they procure, the substances, they are doing this in a safe, responsible way, that they take time to get informed on the ways on how to use it that are very safe and responsible. And also, microdosing is also integrated in a more general lifestyle outlook, where the accent is a lot on health and healthy behavior. And definitely something that comes up a lot in these accounts is this distance between this practice of microdosing and recreational hedonic use. Okay, so this was about how people frame and how they integrate this practice in their life. And now getting to the last part of the presentation, I want to talk about some results from my own research, where we looked at living authentically and whether there is a link between microdosing and living authentically. And the funny story about this is that the data is not funny, but the data that we use is actually collected with the same student that I was telling you in the beginning, that sparked my interest in psychedelic. And he helped me collect the data, and he's also a co-author on this article. The reason why I always tell the story as a tribute to his contribution to this. So what we did, we collected data from students, most of them at Tilburg University. We use an app throughout the month. They received a lot of prompts throughout the day. In the evening, they received a longer questionnaire, and we asked a lot of things. But among them, something about authenticity. And what is that authenticity? Authenticity is defined using different criteria, but first of all, authenticity or being authentic means that you know yourself. You know who you are, you know your values, you know your goals, priorities in life. Second, you also are able to resist external influences. I mean, being yourself in a group of people, it means that you can stand for yourself and behave in line with who you are, regardless of the reaction of the people around you. And third, being authentic means also that you are able to behave in a way that is aligned with your goals and values. I mean, it's not enough, it's not sufficient to know who you are, but you also to have that behavioral component where you are able to actually go and live the life, in accordance to your values. And so, what we were interested in this research was the relationship between microdosing and this idea of state authenticity. So, some people are more authentic or less authentic, and that's considered to be a more like a trait kind of. It is more considered more a trait. But there is also something called state authenticity. Yes, you need to be flexible depending on where you are. Like, I'm going to behave differently now as opposed to when I'm with my son and, I'm in my mother role, right? But that doesn't make me inauthentic. It just makes me able to become flexible between different contexts and roles that I have. And so we were very much interested to see if this level of state authenticity, if people feel more authentic throughout the day, is related to the fact that they took a microdose, yes or not. And so how we measured authenticity was by simply showing this figure where two circles, one depicting you and the other one your real self, with a question at the end of the day, which depiction best represents how close you felt today to your real self. So, why would microdosing relate actually to authenticity? Thinking back about this idea that you need first to know yourself, there is quite a lot of literature that shows that microdosing is related, and we don't know exactly how, but is related with increased mindfulness and absorption, and also with decreased mind wandering. And if this holds, that would imply that people that microdose have better insights into who they are, their values, their priorities, their beliefs. And that, of course, is the first step of living authentically. But then, another finding from research is that a key motivation for engaging in microdosing is this translation of the insights into practice. A lot of people that microdose declare that they engage in this practice and see this practice as a support tool to help them reach their goals. They don't see it as some kind of like a magical pill that's able to fix them or, you know, make them better, but it's that extra support for them to be able to go from whatever they want to achieve to actually put it into practice. Okay, so what do you think? Do people that microdose report to be more authentic the days when they microdose? Raise your hand if yes. Okay, so I see a lot of people who think that yes, and yes. At least based on the results of our research, it seems that in the day, during the day when people microdose, but also the day afterwards, they also reported higher levels of authenticity.